February meeting of the Development Authority. As you know, today is the first day of our televised #1 show. Thank you all for coming. And we have some people, I think, that would like to speak this morning. And anyone would like to speak? Reed?
Yes.
Would you like to please go up to the podium because...
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you. Welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Reed Greenman, and I'm a board member of the Virginia Beach the Virginia Beach Tea Party. For a long time, we've sought to have an opportunity to come and speak on agenda items at this meeting. What you do here is very important to our city, and we think that what you do here is equally as important as our school board and our city council. In order for us to better provide input to you from what we, the public, would like you to do in regard to the debt that you leverage against our city with bonds and the projects that you undertake that are significant changes to the future of our city, we're going to need more access to information. One of the things the city council does is it puts the entire packet up so that we can go through and read the details and provide input to you in these kinds of meetings. When I went to prepare for this meeting today, I did have a copy of the agenda, but I didn't have the background information necessary to come and find out the details of the things that you're going to discuss. Oftentimes, some of the things you do, while they're well-intended, have unintended consequences, and we would like to participate in the process and provide some input to you. On our board, we have strategic planners, business persons, people who are the same as you all, are people with backgrounds in CPA. We go over budgets. We go over your budgets. So in the future, if you're interested in knowing how we feel before you vote, I understand you're appointed by City Council, but what you do is critically important to our city. We need more information put up online. It would help us to provide you with better insights. I hope for your sake that you are interested in understanding how we, the citizen activity groups, feel about the things that you do. I don't think it's necessarily nefarious to develop and grow business. I think that's a smart thing for our city. But we do need to consider some of the ramifications in the way of taxation and debt and how that affects all of us. So in the future, if you could, Dot, maybe talk to your folks and get more of your information packet up similar to the way City Council does it, it would help us come and participate in these meetings in the future. What we are requesting in your process is the same right that we have at City Council. We would like to be able to speak on any particular agenda item before you vote on it so that we could give you some information and insights onto those agenda items. I thank you for your time and appreciate the opportunity to come here today and address you, and hopefully we can work together in the future. Rather than working against each other, I would prefer to work together. Thank you.
We would also like to work together. We want to work together with everyone to keep the city the best in the world. Or the universe, or whatever.
We
Thank
shouldn't
you.
be at odds with each other. We should be rowing
That's
in
right.
the same direction.
That's right.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Thank you very much. Can I have, please, an approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on January 15th?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Can we have the financial statements, please?
Good morning, everyone. Going over our financial inflows and outflows for the month of January. You'll see our business representative, Svetla Tomanova here, has prepared an excellent PowerPoint for display. Your packets will still have your typical monthly financial cash flow sheet on it. This is more of a presentation of what I'll be speaking at for everyone in the gallery to be able to be more familiar with what's going on. If you turn to the first page of your financial packet, you'll see the operating account inflows and outflows, where we begin the month with $4.7 million of operating funding on hand. For the cash flows I was going to cover, give you an explanation for cash receipts related to the Live Nation rent. Over $260,000 of rent was received. On your cash flow statements, you'll see an admin fee of $25,000 that the authority is able to retain for its own purposes, and the remainder, over $250,000 there, will be remitted back to the city treasurer's office as a representation of the ground rent. So one-time annual payment we received from Live Nation. This is covering the 2018 calendar year. Below that, we had a little bit of interest income we earned on the account, close to $3,000 on the savings and CDs the authority maintains. For your disbursements, just to give you an explanation for a few of them, you'll see a commissioner's stipend appearing there. The authority is able to receive, authority members able to receive a stipend for the meetings that they attend. For those that their stipend wasn't mailed at home, you should see in front of you here the check that I received from the bank for you to pick up now. And then also skipping to the bottom of your cash flow sheet, under your special projects, we had work going on at Corporate Landing related to the storm water, close to $10,000 being expended. All that money comes from the corporate park infrastructure budget, which is why it'll appear as a reimbursement back on the top of your cash receipt. So it's not operating account money being spent, it's actually the infrastructure budget, but we want to reflect it here on your statements as well. So at the end of the month, $4,809,790 in operating funding on hand. I don't go over every receipt and disbursement you have, but if you have any questions on anything else that appears in your financials, I'd be happy to answer those questions. If not, I'll move to what'll be your second page for covering the incentive account activity. We begin the month over $2.7 million of cash on hand with the authority. We had quite a few receipts, all money being coming from the city. We had a drawdown for the fiscal year 2019 VIBE grant matching program, $25,000 there, which gets set aside for the awards that the authorities approved. Below that, you'll see for the biopark, there's a CIP established for the infrastructure design going on there, and we've drawn that money down from the city to cover the expenditures the authorities already paid for, over $160,000 of engineering fees. We've been paying for Kimley Horn for that work. Below that, from the APZ1 program, the authorities made some expenditures, one being a sales commission for the sale of land in APZ1 area, as well as some of the engineering fees that have been incurred at London Bridge Commerce Center. So we've received our reimbursement from the city for those expenses we incurred there, as well as a little bit of interest income over $500 in the checking account we maintain. For your disbursements from the incentive program, we had a few of our what we call our Part A awards being paid, over $34,000 being expended. We list the companies here, Mythics Inc. and Marathon Consulting, each getting partial payments on their overall awards based on either the capital investment the company made within the city or the workforce expansion that they had, again, within the city. Below that, we have what we call Part C, which is the APZ1 program awards. This was a payment to Tidewater Valve, a partial payment of their award for the capital investment they made in the city. And then also, again, as we referred to previously, the biopark engineering service work that we will, over $13,000 being expended this month, which becomes part of a reimbursable we'll file with the city for a CIP reimbursement later. So our cash on hand at the end of the month, $2,947,147, and that'll carry over, so I believe will be the fourth page of your reconciliation. We'll take that cash on hand, we'll adjust the receivables that were due back from the city or other areas. We'll adjust all the payment commitments and payables for the awards we've approved in prior months. And we're looking at available funding in the program overall of a little over $1.9 million as of the end of January. I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has on the incentive program inflows and outflows. If not, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I thank you for having the print larger. I think everyone in the back can see it now.
ma'am.
Thank you. Our next briefing is the Opportunity Zone update. Welcome.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Kathy Warren. I'm the SGA manager here for the city, and today presenting with me will be Jenny Connors with Williams Mullen.
Welcome, Jenny.
Before I start, a special thanks to our Opportunity Zones team, which is Ron Berkebile, David Couch, and Steve Harrison. Okay, so just to give a quick overview of our presentation today, I'll walk you through the background, the Virginia Beach Opportunity Zones and marketing, and Taylor's going to step up and help me with that slide when we get there. Then we're going to provide some examples of opportunities within our zones before I pass it on to Jenny, who will get into the benefits, timelines, funds, and properties eligible for the program, as well as those who will benefit most. And then we'll finish by discussing what we're seeing nationally and what we can be doing in the city of Virginia Beach to promote this program. The Opportunity Zone program was established as part of the Federal Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017. The goal of the program is to attract investment into distressed areas of the community by providing investors with deferrals or exclusions of capital gains taxes. And unlike other incentive programs out there, Opportunity Zones investments are not capped. Back in 2018, governors were permitted to choose up to 25% of their qualified census tracts to be designated as Opportunity Zones. These census tracts are eligible if they have a higher than 20% poverty rate or their area median income is below 80% of the area median income. Virginia now has 210 Opportunity Zones, and Virginia Beach has 8 of those. With respect to regulations for the program, proposed regulations have been out for months, and we're expecting final regulations to be issued, and here it says the end of the month, and we really expect this hopefully by March. These are our 8 opportunity zones. These zones meet the criteria for the poverty rate and or the area median income, and many have shovel-ready sites. It's important to note that all but one, which is Corporate Landing, have at least a portion in one of our strategic growth areas. And here's a map showing our opportunity zones. The one on the left is Burton Station, centrally located, our Central Village District and the Bonnie Road area. And then you have 2 census tracts in the Hilltop area, Corporate Landing, Lynn Haven, and the SeaTac area around Oceana. So what is the city's role with this program? And this is an important piece here before Taylor gets up. Our main role was to ensure that we got 25% of our qualified census tracts designated as opportunity zones, which we have done. But this, again, is unlike other programs in that the incentives are not flowing through us. Our main job on this is to promote this program and make sure everyone is aware that we have these 8 great zones with a lot of development opportunity as we move forward.
Thanks, Kathy.
Good morning, Madam Chair. And so I'll speak briefly on how we're utilizing sort of this new program within the office currently and how we're marketing it. And if I can, before I dive in, quickly, the 4 things that I'll cover are a review of the website that we've built. And if I can stop and brag on my team for a minute, I think we've done a really nice job of putting some information out in a hurry on what is a new program. Sort of the where we're coming in, what information is currently available by way of sites that can be utilized for this program, but then also how we're refining that data further. Some meetings that we have had and a couple of things that we have learned from the development community about where there might be opportunity here, and then some information to finish up talking about where there will be more information available in the very near future. This is a snapshot of a website that our team built. Steve, I think you built this one, right? And the thing that I like most about this website is you'll see the map there. That is a fully interactive map. You can zoom in, zoom out within the zones and see what property is available. And Ron, I believe you're working on a further refinement of that to get some site-specific data in there. Again, as this is very new, there are 8 of these zones, as Kathy mentioned. I think you've fully completed 1 and are working through the other 7 now, right, Ron? And so the idea is we're actively engaged in building out a broader data set and a more specific data set within within the individual zones that exist currently. But the interactive feature works, so you can zoom in on addresses and see what's in and get a pretty good idea of what's there right now, with further refinement to come. Two other things about this website that I want to mention. You'll hear some more specifics in just a moment, but the individual sections of the tax code related to this program have not been adopted as yet. So a lot of this is preliminary for us. But what we have done is if you go to our website, you'll see there is a reference to all of the sections of the tax code that are in play in their with the proposed language as it exists today. So we feel that's a resource we can deploy. We're waiting for this to be adopted just like everyone else is, but we felt that it was important to have those sections at least linked there with the proposed language, so that is available. And then the third thing that we have found is helpful is there is a case study, I think, Ron, that you built, that is available as well, so that if you are thinking about doing some investment within the zone and trying to figure out how this program works, Ron put together a case study, and I will go ahead and warn you in advance, it is math heavy, but that's sort of how this program works. But as you dive into it, it's a good working example of how money can be placed within an opportunity zone fund, and then sort of the gains deferral would work. So those are three resources just to mention that are there today and working, and we are actively refining this data further. One thing to mention, I promised you that I'd tell you how the conversation was going with the developers. We are seeing a lot of activity on this early on, but what we continue to hear is, as the code is not yet adopted, many of them are waiting to see what the final language looks like, and they're working with their professionals to understand what it would better mean for them. Kathy sort of hit the nail on the head. This is a federal program that I would tell you our work here is done once we deploy these sites, and once they're available. What we are seeing is a real increase in activity in the zones from a marketing standpoint. One of the things in the proposed language that we think is very interesting for us in the future is that you don't have to own the real estate in the zone. You can be a tenant in a building within a zone and still participate in the gains deferral. Now, without bogging you down with the accounting of that we think that is a real benefit to anyone who owns real estate in these zones, particularly professional office space going forward. But we are waiting to see what the final code looks like. The other thing is to participate in a zone, to participate, there's got to be an opportunity zone fund that is available. Now, two of those are coming online in Richmond, and we know of some folks here locally that are looking at establishing a fund as well. But again, it would be premature to go any further than that at this point. The last thing to mention before I turn it back over to Kathy is that on the 20th, tomorrow, at the New Ziders American Dream Theater here at Town Center, there will be an open house specifically on opportunity zone funds. It's at 5:30, and you can see there's a link there where you can view the agenda and register, and we hope that anyone who's interested will come and join us.
Okay, so just to provide a couple of quick examples so you see where we have some real opportunities within the city. This is the Central Village District in the Pembroke SGA. It's the area between Independence and Witchduck, and there's a lot of public investment going on over here as well as private investment. We see that the Cleveland Street is going to have a complete overhaul in the next several years to change the face of that corridor through the area. The expansion, this provides an opportunity for the expansion west of Town Center. And then, of course, Wegmans is coming. Price Street, which is a new affordable housing community, is under construction, and we have our Housing Resource Center. And then, of course, there's Burton Station. There's a lot of land available here, city-owned land, airport authority-owned land, and we see a lot of investors coming in and asking about opportunities here because they want to take advantage of all of the development that's going on in the area. The area here was recently rezoned, and it's intended to be developed as commercial retail property in the next several years. And we have a lot of public investment again with a pump station, a new fire station. We're building new sections of Burton Station and Tolliver Road to facilitate this development. So I'm going to turn it over to Jenny now for the nuts and bolts of the program.
Okay, good morning, everyone. As Kathy mentioned, I'm Jenny Connors. I'm a partner in the tax section of Williams Mullen, and I head up our Opportunity Zone group. And I would say that we have seen overwhelming interest in this program, largely on one hand because Virginia's zones are so phenomenal. We're actually seeing a lot of interest from out-of-state investors, but primarily because of the incentives that are attached with this program. And those incentives generally are this idea of a deferral of capital gain, a partial tax forgiveness of that capital gain, and the potential for tax-free appreciation of your investment in an opportunity zone. So going a little bit into detail on each of those pieces, the first is this deferral concept. If you are an investor who would otherwise recognize capital gain, you have the ability to invest in an opportunity zone fund and defer that capital gain so long as you make a timely election. And if you do so, you are entitled to defer that capital gain until the earlier of a sale of that investment in the Opportunity Zone Fund or December 31st, 2026. So this program does have a deadline for deferral, and it is December 31st, 2026, no matter when you make an investment in an Opportunity Zone. So next, provided that you make that investment into an Opportunity Zone Fund, you get some tax forgiveness element depending on how long you hold it prior to December 31st, 2026. So if you hold your investment prior to that date for a period of 5 years, you get 10% tax forgiveness of that initial eligible capital gain amount. If you hold it for a period of 7 years, you can get up to 15% tax forgiveness on that amount. Where the real importance of the statute comes into play here is this third piece of the program, this third incentive of tax-free appreciation. If you hold that Opportunity Zone Fund investment for a period of 10 years or longer, you pay no tax on the appreciation of that investment in an Opportunity Zone Fund. So here, I call this slide the window of opportunity because as you'll see, there's an optimal investment window, and we're in that window right now. So I'm going to give a really simplistic example of $100. So if we have an investor who has $100 of eligible capital gain today and invests that into an Opportunity Zone Fund today, February 19th, 2019, and our investor holds for 10 plus years, our investor intends to have a long-term hold in an Opportunity Zone Fund, our investor will owe tax on December 31st, 2026 when the deferral period ends. But he's only going to owe tax on $85, not $100, because he held long enough to get that 15% tax forgiveness. So part of the two first benefits, our investor got 7 plus years of deferral on that capital gain, and our investor got $15 of tax forgiveness. So he pays tax on $85, and assuming for ease a 20% tax rate, he's going to pay tax of $17. Provided that our investor continues to hold for 10 plus years. So he sells on February 19th, 2029, his investment in the Opportunity Zone Fund. Let's assume that investment has appreciated in value, is now worth $500. Our investor pays no additional tax when he sells that investment. So on $500, our investor has only paid tax of $17, which works out to an effective tax rate of about 3.4%. So this is the real crux of the statute, is this concept of tax-free appreciation. So you're looking for areas that have the potential to appreciate in value over a long-term hold. And the tax-free appreciation is good right now through December 31st of 2047. So you could hold for much longer than 10 years. Now, I've mentioned this concept of an opportunity zone fund, which sounds like a really fancy vehicle, but really it's just a corporation or a tax partnership that self-certifies with the IRS. So all this corporation or partnership has to do is file a form with the IRS saying, we're going to be an opportunity zone fund. The crux, though, the harder part to measure, though, is that an opportunity zone fund has to hold 90% of its assets in opportunity zone property. An opportunity zone property is it's a fairly complex concept and does require some planning, as there's some compliance issues associated with it. But really, when you get down to the nuts and bolts of opportunity zone property, it requires really three things. It requires businesses to actively conduct a trade or business within a zone. So the idea is you're doing something active within a zone. Secondly, if you have property outside of a zone, you've got to move it into a zone. So you've got to actually use property within an opportunity zone. And if you purchase existing property within an opportunity zone, you've got to do something to it. You've got to substantially improve it. You've got to better it. So this, through opportunity zone property, through this term and definition and this requirement, the idea is that this is a place-based incentive that is property-centric. And the idea here is that you're bringing economic development, growth, jobs, revenue, you're bringing these things into opportunity zones, into these designated zones. So based on that definition, who are the optimal users of this incentive and what are the optimal uses? This is meant to be flexible and ideal for a very wide variety of businesses. So what we are seeing right now, I will say, is your typical vanilla opportunity zone project, which is real estate based. Seeing a lot of commercial developments, mixed use developments, multifamily housing developments, real estate projects where you're building something or renovating something. They work very well under this incentive. Because of the lack of full guidance, we are not seeing this used as much with operating businesses, but the anticipation is that once we get that guidance, we're going to see a lot more of that activity. But it would work very well for new businesses within opportunity zones. So you're seeing startup entrepreneurial businesses, a lot of them coming from incubators that are moving into zones. Restaurants, you're seeing large development projects. We're seeing a lot of talk about sports facilities, entertainment facilities, big projects that will bring in and attract many investors with large sums of money, institutional opportunity zone funds. You're seeing a lot of talk about that. You're also seeing a lot of existing businesses that are moving their property within opportunity zones, as well as businesses that already exist in opportunity zones that are looking for exponential growth in their businesses. We are talking to a lot of biotech companies who are heavy on intangibles and not tangible property, who are looking to move to zones or expand those businesses and actually buy real estate and operate out of tangible property that they own within the zones. So this is generally, I will say some of the other examples we're seeing are solar farms, grocery stores that are going into food deserts. We're seeing hotels, that's a big interest area, health clinics, warehousing and distribution facilities. The concepts and ideas are really endless within the flexible nature of this incentive. Finally, we're getting a lot of questions from local governments about what they can do to attract investors and what they can do to fit this program within the strategic plan. And the opportunity zone concept is meant to be a force multiplier for localities. It's intended to help drive private investments within these localities and to operate within your strategic growth plans. So one concept is to determine what your investment-ready projects are. And if a project is not investment-ready, make it investment-ready. Because this does have a shorter timeline and window of opportunity, you want to make these projects ideal for investors and ready to come in. And also consider developers and business owners who will work within the public interest and who are committed to the strategic plan of the Virginia Beach community.
Thank you so much for presenting this morning. We really appreciate learning about the new opportunities. Any questions quickly? Okay. Let's see. We have the 757 accelerator update. Stephanie.
Good morning. I'm Evans McMillian. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you.
Thank you for coming, Evans.
So for starters, I tend to get excited about what I'm talking about, so I'm going to have a clock here because I know I have a short window of time. Dave was very clear, 15 minutes. So I am the executive director of 757 Accelerate, but I am here today to talk to you as a member of the Hampton Roads entrepreneurial ecosystem, because I would be remiss if I didn't start with the concept that the accelerator is but one of many resources that we need to make the ecosystem in Hampton Roads really thrive and become vibrant and stay that way. So I want to say that's what I take off my accelerator hat for now, put on my ecosystem hat, but I promise you they both fit the same. And they have the same sort of set of masters. So with that, I'm going to get started today, and I just wanted to say thank you so much just for Virginia Beach's support to date, because it's been exceptional. So just to set the stage, a little roadmap, what I'd like to talk about is this group certainly is aware of the problem, economic dependencies, some other issues, and our slow recovery, and then the sort of what we believe, and the data is proving that innovation and entrepreneurship really are a part of that solution. It is an and, not an or. Let's talk about the momentum that's building in the Hampton Roads ecosystem, and then the resources that have been created and that need the continuing support of this organization and the other municipalities and corporations and universities in the area, and then the opportunity that it presents for Virginia Beach. So with that, I think it's not lost on you all that we have struggled. We are one of the last regions to regain the jobs that were lost in the 2017 recession, and a lot of those jobs have come back at a lower pay. We have continued dependency in defense, which Charlie and I had the opportunity to work together for a long time. And I will say that defense industry here is a humongous part of the solution and always will be, but diversification is a part of the strategy to help buoy those folks and give people, when we undoubtedly have our ups and downs, there are places for those employees to go for thriving economic opportunity. So the data is showing that innovation, and interestingly, UVA has just committed an entire research organization to this in the Darden Institute, but that then some recent publications talking about how cities and areas small cities rise based on their commitment to innovation and entrepreneurship. So they're really studying that at UVA, and the data is really impressive. So for starters, as I pointed to a moment ago, economic diversification. So I always say this is and, it's not or. It's not that we turn our face away from our friends in the legacy industries or defense, but we say, what else can we do? What else can we do to support? How do we build our own bakeries? How do we add to? So economic diversification, innovation, and entrepreneurship investments really provide the resources that are needed to add to that sector of the economy. And then I would say that the jobs, the numbers, the tech jobs, if you look at the CBRE tech talent reports, most of the jobs that come through technology and innovation have a significantly higher mean base rate of pay. So again, those will help with tax base and all the things that economic development is interested in. But the key is really the mix, so innovation is really an economic driver. It's a driver of jobs, and it's a driver of pay, and it's a driver of industry. So over the past, based on Kauffman Foundation data, over the past 25 years, almost 100% of the net new job growth has come from companies less than 5 years old. And in the last 5 years, over 900,000 jobs have come from companies less than 1 year old. So it's impressive. New business creation is really an economic driver in all communities, and that's agnostic as to region. So with that, when you talk about when you talk about entrepreneurial ecosystems, hopefully what this data shows is that entrepreneurship and innovation are a key aspect to any economic development strategy, and they are just part of it. So the components of a healthy entrepreneurial ecosystem start with creating density, getting people together, getting like-minded people together, giving them places, and giving them and creating a culture where we're open to them, where we're open to business for companies that are high growth companies, but they may be pre-revenue. So the other is access to capital is one of those critical aspects. So companies will go and they will stay where they can find capital to support them in their early years before they become profitable. So resources, we'll get to that in a minute, but that's the human capital that you wrap around the financial capital that helps these companies. We all know a scientist who has a great idea, but they're really, really far from being a profitable business. That's where the resources come in. And the other is talent. Most of the resources that I'm working on don't necessarily have a talent component directly, but we work closely with, and we go and present and try to collaborate with the organizations that really are working on talent development. So we all know that if you have a company that you get them on the precipice to scale, they need to hire some people. We want those people to be available, attracted to, and willing to stay here. So while we're gotten some start and we have a great start and some great data, what we're still seeing is that Virginia as a whole is struggling. So what we find is that in Virginia, we have a higher rate of failure with companies in their first 2 years. And that really suggests a lack of coordinated access to capital, early capital, high-risk capital, and the resources that we need to support those companies as they grow. So sort of going towards the capital idea, the data shows that companies that started in Virginia and left Virginia raised 2.5 times more money outside of Virginia than when they were here. Again, that could have to do with stage of company, but that number is pretty compelling. And the job numbers are not that much better. Early stage companies that started here and left created 3.5 times more jobs than the companies at the same stage that stayed here. Okay, so we as a state have some work to do. We're involved in statewide initiatives that will, and we're wearing our Hampton Roads flag and making sure that they realize what we have here and what we're building and that we need equal access to those resources. But it's a statewide problem, so we do what we do here, but we're mindful and aware and involved in statewide initiatives. So when we talk about, I'm going to come back to this one, when we talk about activity and momentum. So if we have those problems, what are we doing about it? Well, in 2015, in the last 3 to 4 years, there's been a lot of activity. And I hope if I leave you with anything, it's we've done a lot, we're building a lot. With your support and your sustained support, we can do even more. But we're not standing around saying we've got a problem, what should we do about it? We've been working on it for a while. We have some real metrics to show, but we're just at the early stages. So in 2015, a group of folks were convened by the Hampton Roads Community Foundation and sort of tried to figure out what are we going to do about this problem. So what they worked on was how do we centralize around capital? If capital is one of the most important things, what do we say? How do we get capital together? How do we organize it? So they created 757 Angels, which I'm going to give you some really impactful metrics of what they've been able to put on the board in the last 4 years. I'll just start with $42 million deployed in Virginia in the last 4 years, getting us really on the Hampton Roads map. I mean, on the nationwide entrepreneurial map. So then we were very quick to follow in 2016 with the launch of a digital hub. If what we all have is a regional issue, connectivity, you have a great event, it's in Hampton, it's raining, people on this side say, oh, I really want to go to that, but I'm not driving across the bridge, right? So what can we do to connect people virtually? So we created a digital hub where resources, events, people can come connect in whatever garage you're in whatever town you're in. You're not limited by your access to resources. So then in 2017, I worked with Reinvent Hampton Roads. We won $1 million grant with Virginia Beach's support. We collaborated with 6 cities, 4 universities behind the leadership of Town Bank, won $1 million from a really highly competitive grant program. It was impressive, again, getting us on the entrepreneurial map. We put those resources to work for the accelerator, which we'll talk about in a minute. We very quickly decided, look at all these things we've done. In 2018, one of the most important things, as I said, hearkening back to the beginning, was density and culture. How do you create density? You get people in the same room with people who look like them, are interested in what they're talking about. So we created the first ecosystem event, 600 people, rainy, Good Friday. Everybody came. Warner came down, was a keynote, was impressive. Again, year 1, 600 people. And then in late 2018, we started our first cohort of 757 Accelerate. I'll talk to you about the metrics of that in a minute. Traditional acceleration program, doubled down on 5 really promising companies and help them, accelerate the growth of their business and then put them out on the street for city roadshow to investors. They saw 35 investors their first year. They're all busy out raising money. They all want to stay here. And finally, we won Go Virginia funding for 757 Seed Fund, which is a small $1.5 million community-focused founders fund. We'll go into that in a minute. But hopefully what that gives you is a sense of momentum. From the first from the first point on the timeline to the end is 3 years. So what we've worked on now, so if we look at the metrics, so one of the things, you can start a bunch of things The question is, what is the impact? I use the words interconnected, inclusive, and impactful. So how is this impactful? These metrics are impressive. Since 2015, 757 Angels, $42 million deployed into Virginia companies. The national average is $2.5 million a year. 120 investors. They were the fast to 100 investors in, according to the Angel Capital Association. They've seen over 500 companies in 4 years, had 60 companies pitch for investment. 20 have been funded, and at the end of 2018, 251 high-paying jobs created in Virginia from those companies. Startwheel, 1 year old in its efforts, over 1,000 subscribers. 757 Accelerate, we just started. We ran our first cohort last year, less than 6 months ago. We opened applications. We hoped for 40. We got 180 applications from 6 countries, 20 different states. We had 94 people finalize their application. 39 of those companies were from Virginia Beach. 5 companies, we only had room for 5 companies. And we had 82 mentors hold up their hand and say, how can we help? RISE is an interesting organization. I sit next to them, sourcing technologies and driving innovation around resilience and recurrent flooding. They opened an international challenge. We helped them partner with MIT. They have got 50 applications from all over the world. They have 6 finalists. They are helping those companies develop a viable product, create a business around it, and then looking to invest at the end of this year. I mentioned the launch. We had 400 attendees, 600 ended up showing. We had 400 people RSVP, 600 came. And then ICAP is an early stage program that we partnered with out of George Mason University. And it is works with the SBDC. And I'm going to show you my pathway in a minute, but it is ideation. It really helps. So if I can only take 5 companies in the accelerator, and they better be pretty promising because it's 185 companies. So what am I doing? We're making sure that these guys have early support and that we weed out the best ideas early. So what I hope I've given you is a sense of a pathway. So we've created a pathway here in Hampton Roads where companies can go from ideation through the acceleration stage and into the various stage of early pre-seed and seed stage investment to become high growth companies. You'll see that Virginia Beach Bio Challenge is here as we consider that to be a really strong partner, and I'll get into that in a minute, and the ideation part of the funnel. And hopefully we worked with your staff and Rosemary Truman to try to wrap our resources around those companies to make sure, de-risk any investment Virginia Beach has made in a risky space, I admit. But I will say that there's a lot of promising opportunity there. So then I'm just going to go quickly into the individual resources, and I know that we're short on time. We talked a lot about 757 Angels and its impact. The only thing it's important to know is that they are investing, their thesis is only to invest in companies in Virginia with a real bias to Hampton Roads. So to put those numbers on the board with a geographic limitation on the fund is impressive. $41 million, and that's the impact, but for Virginia Beach, $20 million of that 42 has come to Virginia Beach companies. 44% of the investors are from Virginia Beach. As I mentioned, 757 Accelerate. For those of you that don't know, I'll just say it's a 3-month rigorous, selective, mentor-driven program where we run these companies through a standard set of modules, but because we only have 5 companies, we are able to customize the training so that, if we have a bio-heavy group, we take a different set of mentors and really dig in with them that deals with regulatory path. If we have food and beverage, we have a set of mentors that really help them. So we have the ability to customize because we only have 5. The biggest gift is that we have $20,000 of non-dilutive capital. That's what we use the grant resources for, to make sure that to defray the costs and to really be an attraction vehicle to both the accelerator and to Hampton Roads. So the seed fund, again, $1.5 million. We're in the middle of raising for that. We have over 60 investors who are interested. It's really catalytic community capital. If you remember that pathway slide, it's the early pre-angels money. Some folks have a great idea. They have a sort of a product. They need a little help getting to that really viable product that they could actually show to a customer. So that's where pre-seed funding comes in. We are missing that gap around the state of Virginia, but here in Hampton Roads as well. So we have the launch event we talked about, and then Start Wheel we talked about. And I'll leave it here to say what we are asking for this authority to think about is a $125,000 proposal to support each of these resources. I've given the staff a breakdown of what the ask is here, what each of these resources needs. That's a 2-year ask, so that's over a 2-year period to support these resources. The most important thing to think about is you have already made a significant investment in both CAI and the Bio Challenge. And I know you're at least on the final stages of selections. And we've spoken to Rosemarie. We knew her before. We've talked to her all during this process. We've spoken to your staff. We're working really well together, I hope. But what I would leave you with is that you've made a big investment. And you're talking about how can you put those people in a meaningful place that maybe they can create that density without the human and financial capital, without the additional resources. These are ideas. These companies need support all along the way. We're already doing that. We're already building that. So I hope that we can find a way to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel and sort of building and leveraging what you've already made a very wise investment into in wrapping it in the resources that we've already built and are deploying around Hampton Roads.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Are there any questions? Rosemary?
Yes.
How many other cities invested?
So we have spoken to Norfolk, well, the original cities that invested in the accelerator, we've spoken to all of them about their continued investment. So we're just at the beginning of the process because everybody was generous enough to give us 3 years of funding, so we have 2 more. But it's important so we've talked to the same 6 cities that invested in the grant at the beginning, and we're making the same ask of them. So we haven't don't have any checks yet, but we're at the place where we're making the ask. So for 2 years of runway. So there's 6 cities, so you know Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Chesapeake, Newport News, Hampton, and Portsmouth. All invested.
Any
Did
other
they all
questions?
put in the same amount? or
They
different?
did, yeah. So the idea is that, and we did this, these guys can help you, but we did this saying we need this much for the I-6 Challenge Grant. It's a $1 for $1. So we had to raise $500,000. So we said, the more cities that come in, everyone's commitment goes down. And it was very transparent. Everybody was on the same phone calls. Everybody was only asked for the same exact amount. So when, Newport News came in, everybody's came down by that same amount.
Thank you again.
Yeah.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Andy is going to talk about our housing resource. I know. Andy, we know what you want. We're happy to have you here, and you would like a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll just give you I'll defer to the chairman and the city and Alex if you want, but a very brief review. We are trying to bring some federal funding in to support the Housing Resource Center. We've recommended that VBDA become the owner of the facility in order to make that happen. We came here and talked to you in September and January, and on February 5th, 2 weeks ago, Council approved this transfer. And so what we're here today is to ask you to, as you said, act to approve receiving ownership of the center with a lease back to the city and an operating agreement such that there should be no change in the operation or funding of the center. And Mr. Stiles has prepared the documents that you will approve that would make that happen. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Stiles? Thank you very much, Andy. We're very proud to have that in our city. You've done a wonderful job.
Thank you
So do
very
we
much.
have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Request for approval of authority funds for Rudy Loop temporary placemaking.
Good morning. Thank
Good
you
morning,
for having
how are
me.
you?
Fine, thanks. I'm Emily Archer. I'm an urban designer with the city's Strategic Growth Area Office. I'm here to talk quickly today about a opportunity to improve a vacant authority-owned property at the oceanfront. This is Rudy Loop between Pacific Avenue and the oceanfront there at the end of southern end of the boardwalk. There used to be it's about a half-acre site. There used to be a hotel there that was demolished in 2017. This is what it currently looked like after the hotel went down. You can see the slab where the pool used to be and the kind of current state of affairs. And then in 2018, late last year, a new sculpture was installed in the northern end of the site where that pink area is outlined by Work Progress Architects and Piece of Cake Productions. It was a public call to artists that won the installation, facilitated by our Cultural Affairs group. It's a tribute to a Walt Whitman poem. It's really started to activate the site and create a visible component as you reach the end of Atlantic Avenue. So we see an opportunity to improve the rest of the site, and we're here today to ask for funds to do so. So it's not just aesthetic improvements. It could be an inviting walkway between Rudy Loop, the walkway underneath the bridge, the 4th Street parking lot, and the oceanfront. It's really kind of this new trend of tactical urbanism and temporary placemaking that's happening in cities around the world to activate their vacant spaces on a temporary basis to facilitate future long-term investment. A close example in the upper right photo is Norfolk's plot that happened before the main went in, and then a faraway example in Norway of a temporary park that was installed with planters, paint, and furnishings. It's really low-cost, high visibility improvements, and the ultimate goal is to contribute to Council's goal of being a competitive first-class resort for residents, businesses, and tourists. Some of the components is really to bring elements of the boardwalk to the site, so more topsoil and Bermuda grasses, and more of a dunescape in some areas with a little bit of grade change with dune grasses and sand. The existing slab we feel could be resurfaced and create a little potential event spaces, 3,200 square feet, and then the slab itself could be a canvas for art, and that in itself could be a interactive feature. The outside of the wall was also a great opportunity we see for another place for art. Our Cultural Affairs, Nita's here from Cultural Affairs, our public art coordinator. It would be a similar process for our recent murals like Mount Trashmore Steps and our Parks and Rec internal mural. They put out a call to artists. From Mid-Atlantic, we would have a narrow panel that would narrow it down, and then you'd have an online vote to narrow the artwork and award the artist. We think this could happen by May or June of this year. And then inside the wall itself, we were thinking about a green wall. So you put a little wire mesh and get some planters down there, reuse in-house materials, and get a green wall going. We estimate this would all cost about $31,500. You'll see some zeros up there. We're going to try to reuse in-house material. This could be done with in-house services as well. The highest cost really is the slab resurfacing, and then followed by the topsoil and landscape material. Any questions?
It looks really nice, doesn't it? I'm excited about seeing it in our beach. I know. I've just been nice. May I hear a motion, please? We have a motion to approve. A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. We have some corporate landing. Rob. What?
Randy Royal.
Randy.
That's
okay.
it.
And I'll try to be quick. Randy Royal with Kimley Horn Associates. I'm the on-call engineer for the Development Authority. Had a lot of interest in corporate landing as of late with data centers because of the subsea cables coming in, but really didn't have any regulations specifically related to data centers. So we've added proposed design criteria for the data centers. They are allowed in all of the districts there, and there is a zoning category for it with the city. Primarily focusing on parking requirement, which they really need what they need. They don't need as much for the square footage. Utility yards, which we'll show you a visual of that, but that's where the generators, et cetera, are kept. In these utility yards, we want to have sound attenuation. Don't want these to be loud, and they are not. Jogging trails really aren't appropriate for data centers because they are securitized for the most part with fences around them. Jogging centers are required in the rest of corporate landing. That was one of the changes. Fencing, and I'll show you some examples here, but we wanted to have, fences are not allowed in corporate landing, but they're going to need them for the data centers, so we wanted to specify what they could and could not have. The building, again, I'll show you some examples, but they're a bit different from what we've got out there. There's a lot of concrete tilt-up panel, there's metal panels, there's less entryways and glass because, again, they're securitized, there are a lot of computers within the building. So data center architecture, these are the type buildings you're going to see. out there. We've just shown some. Point one we'll talk about a little bit later. Buildings in various locales, and as you can see, a little bit of glass up front, which is what we have coming in, but for the most part, metal panels, concrete tilt-up wall. Fence examples. This can be aluminum, vinyl, cast iron. We don't want chain link. We don't want wooden or anything like that. That's probably an 8-foot fence there, and that's pretty much what you're going to see most of these folks wanting. No barbed wire or anything at the top. It's a little, with the pointy ends there, of course, it makes it a little tougher for people to scale them if they want. Not necessarily requiring brick columns, but that's just a fence standard there. So what you have before you are to adopt the changes to the design criteria to create some standards for data centers. That's point one. That's another presentation. That's building materials for the point one presentation.
That's also part of the changes in building materials.
Right. Those are typical, Brian, for the type of building materials that would be required with these data centers.
Thank you. Lisa?
I had a question. Is there any way to soften the fences with landscaping on the outside?
Good point. I'm glad you brought that up. I was going too fast. We are requiring landscaping or berms in front of all these fences. The next presentation will speak to that, but that is a requirement so that the fences, you just don't see the fences there. Anything else?
Do we hear a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. And the next one is Global Links.
So Global Links has been approved by you previously. They have a minor change to the plan, and that's what this application is about. They are located, I don't know whether I have a pointer here or not. Oh, goodness. The Global Links to the right is the existing building. That's where they're going in now. They're expanding that building a bit. The other site on the left is for future expansion. That, of course, is Corporate Landing. This is the site plan, and what you can see is a fence around the property. That's the change. It's not really reflected well here, nor in the rendering, but step to the board here. There's an existing berm along here, so Lisa, to your point, the fence will be somewhat obscured by that. You won't just see the fence from the road. That's a rendering. There are trees out there. What you don't see in the rendering is the berm that's there, which will remain. That's their site plan, again, showing the fence area. Same type fence that we showed before for the standards. That's an 8-foot fence. And that officially is the request approval of a site plan modifications to allow security fence, which is now allowed per the design criteria that you just approved, but they've changed the site plan, so we need a modification to the site plan approved.
Hear a motion? Second?
Actually, I have a question.
Okay.
So, Randy, there's a landscape plan that goes with the site plan?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think we have the details of it there, but there's going to be more landscaping on the plan. That's just the site layout for the building addition there. The rendering showed some of the trees up front and, like I said, the berm that's in there.
No one did. I just tried to get them to. Hear a motion, please? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The last one you have is point one, final site plan and building elevations for the sale of property.
Right. They've been through the process with you for the preliminary approval, and they have final site plans submitted. Point one, there's the rendering of their building. The architect, that's kind of their internal architect, actually HBA, and this is the board here, Brian, is the architect, legal services, Chris Kenny Law. Contractor is also Ballard, who's on the board here and shown. Data center campus, its own corporate landing. It's has one of the subsea cables landing in it. That's where the site is located, corporate landing parkway. Little stub street right here, Telefonica there, New Round Brewery. Again, they're developing a data center. It's a cable landing station coming in. Site plan, phase one of the site plan, which is the submittal, fronting on Corporate Landing Parkway there, about 31,000 square feet. Phase two will be a similar type building on the back of the property there. Parking in the front, fencing around this one also. Kind of want to point this out. I mean, this is the building, utility yards in the front and the back where they have the generators, but you really don't see those. It looks like building wall. I mean, there's a rendering there. We don't have the landscaping in the rendering, but there will be landscaping in front of the fence. But the front walls there, you've got the glass panels and stuff where the entryway is, but to the right and to the left is actually a utility yard. Looks like a building, but it's open, and there is sound attenuation, so it's not a loud type use. There's another picture of the rendering. The materials here, Brian, what we talked about, the metal panels, concrete tilt-up wall. You've got glass in the middle there, but for the most part, there's concrete tilt-up walls on the side and rear with a little bit of fenestration. Site plan showing you, again, the building in the middle, the utility yards in the front and the back on both sides there. Landscaping plan, we've got landscaping down each side in front of the fence, landscaping in front of the fence up front. The only landscaping not provided is at the back, which is not visible to the street. There's the type of fence. We don't have the brick columns, but that's the type of fence. They have an 8-foot fence proposed. And what you have before you is final approval of the site plan, 10.4 acres at $200,000 an acre for a total sale price of $2 million. The idea is to get the plat recorded. These folks are moving forward, and they'd like to go ahead and close with the Development Authority on the property.
Is this going to affect our future sales of other type of buildings there because they're all fenced?
I think all of the data centers are going to want fencing, which is
They're all
why
gonna
we
be in that
changed
one
that to the
place, yeah.
criteria. But to Lisa's point, to pretty much have it hidden with berming, landscaping,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
What about, in this one, you said there's a portion of the fence that's not facing a public right-of-way?
Yeah, I'll go back to it.
What would it be facing within the park, though? To
Phase
Dot's
two.
point, yeah, so it's just another phase of.
Right, let me go back to the concept. Right there. So the only fence that doesn't have landscaping would be here, which is going to be phase two of their project behind it when it develops. Right now, there's nothing back there. There's not a street or anything where anybody could see the back of that.
Do you hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to welcome our newest member, Bill Brunke, is joining us today. Just the first time. Thank you for coming. We look forward to working with you.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Taylor, do you have an update while I clean up the mess I made?
We have a few quick things. As you've heard some reference to, we are completing the Virginia Beach Bio Challenge. We have 7 contracts signed as of today, and we are working through what would be a second and then we think third group that will land us somewhere in the neighborhood of 20, as many as 20, as few as 17. So we're excited to announce that we're working through that. Some of you have heard us mention this, but just to officially announce, we'll be hosting the National Institute for Health at the Convention Center. That's something that we've worked with. That's a conference we've worked with Hampton University and the Convention and Visitors Bureau to secure. I'm going to cut this down and do one other announcement. The Carolina, Virginia's Minority Supplier Development Council is going to be hosting their annual conference here, which we're also will be at the Convention Center. We worked, Jeff Smith on my team has worked with the Convention and Visitors Bureau to secure that. And then one last note. You all previously authorized us to do a total of $200,000 worth of work related to studies and research around the dome site. We have authorized 127 of that, 1,000 of that has been authorized to date, and 82,000 of it has been spent. Just to let you know, there is another study that we are initiating in the neighborhood of $20,000, which will be further feasibility work around some of the experiential retail there.
Thank you. National Institute of Health coming here is a really big deal. I'm just so excited about that they're noticing how great we are.
So I will tell you, I don't know that we have always been in the convention business, but we are finding a hook in it, and it is. It's really exciting, particularly with our bio, with our new focus on bio here. Well, it's not new anymore, but with our focus on bio and the challenge wrapping up, to be hosting the National Institute of Health the same year is a huge win for us. Also, you'll hear a little more as we're honing in on dates about the second version of Catapult, hopefully next month. So,
Great. Thank you.
it's growing activity for us. We're excited about it.
And we're having the State of the City March 20th.
March
With
20th.
our mayor is speaking, so we hope that everyone will try to attend. And please let one of these ladies or Taylor know if you can attend. Thank you. Let's see. That's it, right? We'll go into closed session. It's wet. The chair will entertain a motion to recess into closed session pursuant to the exemption from open meeting allowed by section 2.2-3711A Code of Virginia as amended for the following purposes. Publicly held properties, discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for a public purpose, or the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A3. Prospective business or industry, discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A5. You hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
Call
Roll, please.
David Byrne,
He's not.
William Bruckner, Brian Cuffey,
Yes.
Taylor Franklin,
Yes.
Kenny Morgan,
Yes.
Peter Miller,
Yes.
Lisa Murphy,
Yes.
Charles Sally,
Yes.
Joe Strange.
Yeah.
Scott Wood.
Here. Yes.
We have 6.